Blackline Field Notes, issue number 004. Why great contractors document everything. Lessons learned through experience shared by those in the field. Construction is kind of nuts. The reality is there's so many moving parts required to bring a project out of the ground and keep it moving. People, material, schedules, changes, inspections, information, decisions, and deadlines, they all have to come together. We talk about finishing projects on time and under budget, and we talk about critical path, a 3-week look ahead, a 6-week look ahead, Gantt charts, whole 9 yards. Sometimes I think we should just call it some sort of fortune telling, because it really is, no matter how good the plan is, things change. That's the reality. And when they do, even if you haven't documented what happened, when it happened, and why it happened, you eventually end up relying on memory. Quite frankly, that's dangerous. You don't want to run a construction project based on your memory. Great contractors document everything, not because they love paperwork, but because they understand what good documentation protects. Good documentation I have seen time and time again when I am in a bad situation, whether it's daily logs or whether it's the way the paperwork was filed, saves so much time, which saves money. And it also gives you a level of confidence when you're being asked something that you can speak with clarity about what's going on, because the fact is, you won't remember if you don't. When I first started in the industry, I had to fill out a paper timesheet every day. At the end of the week, I would turn it in at the shop, and the problem was I didn't always fill it out every day. Sometimes I would wait until Friday because I was young and stupid. But by then I was trying to remember what I had done on Monday, and the reality was I couldn't remember what I did on Monday. Not in the level of detail that they wanted to be able to get their job costing the way that it was, and the reality was I wasn't being accurate. I kind of got really frustrated with it over time and was like, I don't like this. And quite honestly, I felt a little guilty, like I wasn't giving them what they had asked me to do, and that's what I was getting paid to do. So it taught me something that I've never forgotten. It taught me that I needed to write it down or I wouldn't remember. Maybe some people have a better memory than I do, but I don't believe we should be running multi-million-dollar projects on memory alone. We should write it down. I don't even believe that we should be doing service calls without writing things down, to be quite honest. We have to document things with intention. Great contractors don't document everything just to say they did. They document with intention because there's a difference between having information and being able to use it. Technology has made this so easy. You can store everything, whether it's on a server, emails, photos, drawings, RFIs, schedules, reports. I mean, there are so many aspects. I don't even know in the companies that I work with that people still fill out daily reports on paper. It's all through an app. But if no one can find it or understand it, it may well not exist. It's not like being able to go through a file cabinet and find something. If it's on the server and it's not filed properly, you're never going to find it. Good documentation is clear, accurate, organized, understandable to someone who wasn't there. That last one is key. It is understandable to someone who wasn't there, because chances are that's who's going to be looking at it. If someone can read it years later and understand what happened, it's good documentation. You document for the person who wasn't there when you were there. You know, I've been on projects where work has been completed years earlier. And in one case in particular, I remember The documentation that a contractor did before I ever even got there was done so well that I could understand exactly what had been done and how it had been installed and how it worked and why decisions were made. And this was great for the client because we were able to pick up right where the others had left off. And they did it because that's what the client asked them to do. And that's what a good contractor does, regardless if they're coming back or not. The person who created it had no idea who would need it later, but they documented it anyway. That's what great contractors do. They don't just think about today, they think about the person who comes after them. You know, this one is near and dear to my heart, actually. Daily reports, they really matter. The reality is, I personally don't think daily reports are an optional thing. And it's a battle to get people to understand it, but the fact of the matter is I was in a courtroom once and daily reports saved me. They're essential. They should clearly capture who was on site, what work was completed, what areas were available or restricted, what material arrived, what changed, what impacted the schedule, what information was missing. These details may feel small in the moment, but months or years later, they become the record that tells the truth. Like I said, for me personally, daily reports really helped me in situations for a couple reasons. And when they're filed appropriately, one of the things that happens is I think our brains are even wired in this way of filing things appropriately. When I went back and looked at a daily report, it brought my memory back so that I could see clear and consistent and factual data that triggered memories in my mind where I'm like, oh yeah, that is how this went. Oh yeah, that is what happened here. And in that moment, the documentation protected me. It protected the people that I worked with, the company, and most importantly, that documentation protected the truth. You know, sometimes I think we get confused and we might rewrite things even in our own mind, but when we write things down and we process those things out and we track it, it's very easy to maintain, oh, this is what really happened. This is how it went. Documentation protects everyone. A good documentation protects the contractor, it protects the client, it protects the project. Without it, everyone's relying on memory, and memory rarely matches reality. That's when disputes begin and when relationships break down. And that's when it costs more for everyone, when it increases and things end up costing more than what anybody wanted them to. If you make this process the normal, and it's what you do, that really is what I believe good contractors do. It's what we do. It's the reality. And we hold people accountable to it. The best contractors make documentation part of the job, not an extra task. Change orders are normal. Daily reports are normal. Schedule updates are normal. Written approvals are normal. When it becomes your standard operating procedure, conversations become easier. It's not personal. It's just the process. And when everything is documented properly, there's far less confusion about what was agreed to and why. Little side note here, you know, that's why change orders in particular, like if you're doing that, one of the things that I would say with your process, you don't do work till change order is signed. There's no reason to get outside of that process. And if you do, then how can you tell when you did and when you didn't? That's just the reality of why processes matter. You know, you write down what's said. One of the things that I think is really important, and I don't know that a lot of people agree with me, but meeting minutes are often underestimated. But they matter so much. If you're running weekly meetings, someone should document what is discussed and distribute it. Then everyone has the opportunity to clarify or correct it. And the reality is then when you're in the next meeting and if you weren't there or you don't remember, you can again take your memory back to the reality. Now you have a record. Weeks later, no one has to say, I think we talked about that. You can go back and see exactly what was said, decided, and assigned. Clarity removes confusion. This saves money and resources. Documentation is a part of keeping your word, honestly. A good documentation is part integrity and character. If I say I'm going to do something but I don't document it, don't communicate it, and I forget it, my intention doesn't matter at all. My brother used to say, good intentions have paved the road to hell. And the reality is that's true. Intentions don't mean anything if you don't follow through with them. If you don't document it, and if you don't document it, what's wrong with me? If it's not something that you document, then where is your intention? If it still didn't happen, then there was no intention. Documentation creates accountability. It reinforces commitments, it ensures alignment, and it builds trust over time. And I cannot tell you how helpful it is if you're ever in a courtroom, because you'll usually be there years after a project's been over. And it is extremely helpful in protecting you and the company, and also helping you remember what was actually going on. The cost of not documenting, well, that can be insurmountable. Poor documentation doesn't just create inconvenience, it creates real cost. Lost time, rework, disputes, missed change orders, damaged relationships, lost jobs. Good documentation may feel like extra work today, but bad documentation costs far more tomorrow. The reality is, I have seen projects that were not documented well, and it was just a matter of going through the motions. Meeting minutes that were just a list of who was there and the things that they wanted to talk about, but not the things that actually were talked about. And that doesn't help anyone. I have never seen a project that had thorough documentation and accurate recording of what was going on actually go sideways to a point that was not recoverable. Usually, those projects don't go sideways if the documentation is where it should be. Here's the summary of this field note for today. The best contractors don't over-document. They document what matters. They keep it clear, they keep it organized, and they keep it consistent. Because they understand something simple, if it isn't written down, it didn't happen. So write it down. That's what you need to do. It makes you better at your job. It makes the project better. Everything flows smoother. And, you know, I think that that's something that you can even see whether you're a general contractor. Are your specialty contractors asking for that? Are they encouraging that? If you're a specialty contractor, when you bid the job, does this contractor do these things? You know, because great contractors document everything. And like I said, they don't document unessential things. They document the things that matter. They document things in a way that you can go back, and they're not worried about documenting the reality of a situation because they're not playing games. They just want to spell out, hey, this is how it went. This is what we talked about. This is what we want to do. And it kind of keeps everybody, it keeps everybody on the same page, moving forward effectively in order to hit their mark. The other thing that it does for organizations is, like I said, if you ever end up in a courtroom or trying to defend yourself about something, you can always go back to the documentation. And if you've thoroughly kept it, people look at that because that's a history of who you are as a company. That's why the process and the procedures matter in the way that you do them and that you're consistent with doing them. Great contractors document everything. So think about that if you're wanting to work towards being a great contractor. If you're looking to work with a contractor, how do they handle that? Because if they don't, I'm telling you right now, it's going to cost you money and resources. Whether you're an owner, a specialty contractor, whether you're a general contractor and you're bringing other team members into your orbit or projects and they don't do that, the cool thing is, as a GC, you have the ability to demand that. You have the ability to say, listen, you want to be on this job, you want to do this, then I want this. I want daily reports. I want this. I want, your change orders, your contracts. I want your thoughts on the meeting minutes. I want these things from you, and we're going to require that. Well, then you have the ability to make all contractors great because you're the one leading the charge with that. Step up to the line. Be a great contractor. Document everything.